Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Today is Thursday, the 22nd of September. It is 5 p.m. Central Time. And before I bring in our commentator, I want to remind everybody you can get your comments in on the show if you're watching the Polite Society podcast, Facebook, or YouTube feed. Comment on the live video. If you're watching anywhere else, and by the way, welcome to those who are viewing us on Getter. If you're watching anywhere other than the Polite Society podcast feeds, just go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. We get those comments almost right away, and we'll get them on the air as well. I'm just finishing up social media, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in my commentator today, Mike Piwowarski. He's been absent enough that I think he's a red shirt officially now. So, Mike, you get to beam down to the planet before everybody else, and we're going to miss you if something goes wrong.
Yeah, listen, it's been an unfortunate series of circumstances that have kept me away for a couple of weeks, but it's great to be back and here with you and all the folks at SAF. And I do have a question. Mm-hmm. Did you say Get Her? What is that? What's Get Her?
It's a social media platform that's supposed to be it's supposed to take the place of, I can't remember if it's Facebook or Twitter it was going after, but I think it's a Twitter competitor. And
all right. We'll have to pull it up. I'm not familiar with all the new things that you kids are hip with.
Well, and I gotta extend thanks to OpsLens, because OpsLens started it there. And they're just carrying our feed there. So,
gotcha.
One of the many places that OpsLens is pushing, besides the OpsLens app, which I love, they're also pushing us off to Getter. I know they've got a YouTube and a Facebook feed and other feeds. So that's why I say if you see us anywhere other than the Polite Society podcast feeds, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. So,
I've got the OpsLens app on my smart TV, the big on the big screen in the living room, and it's amazing. I can go in there and watch your programs during the week. Everybody else, all of our good circle of conservative friends. It's really cool to watch it on TV.
I'm a little worried though, because I don't want to be responsible for breaking a whole bunch of really expensive TVs by my picture getting there. But yes,
yep.
I have the same app on my TV.
I put the animals in the other room so it doesn't scare them.
Yeah, this face has been known to cause a few panic stampedes. Thank goodness I'm not speaking at Gun Rights Policy Conference this year. Otherwise, who knows? But right. Anyway, and I've got my phone just going off. I need to get that thing muted. I don't know why I've got so many. Where is my there's my shut up button. Let's get started on our news stories today, Mike. First one, I've been covering this for over a year. I've been paying attention to this case. This is off Bearing Arms. Cam Edwards wrote a piece today, and I'm going to read quite a bit of it. Santa Clara County Sheriff Lori Smith is facing multiple charges of willful and corrupt misconduct for allegedly overseeing a pay-to-play scheme where donors to her re-election campaign or the sheriff's office were able to obtain a concealed carry permit, something that was generally off-limits to the residents of the California county. This week, however, Smith sought to have those charges dismissed, arguing that thanks to the Supreme Court's decision striking down May issue laws in New York and a handful of other states, including California, she shouldn't be prosecuted for disregarding a law the courts have ruled as unconstitutional. Cam goes on to write, it's an audacious request, and thankfully San Mateo County Superior Court Judge Nancy Feynman ended up shooting down the novel legal theory, at least for the most part. Basically what happened is when California's May issue was shot down, this sheriff says, well, now that my corruption case should go away because the what they were accusing me of was ignoring a law that was ruled unconstitutional. Well, not quite. You're still corrupt, lady. You were still taking money for a limited resource. Yeah. Mike, what do you think, man?
Yeah, she wasn't ignoring it. They make it sound like, well, I chose not to, go by that law because I thought it was unconstitutional. What she was doing was holding people's concealed weapons permits ransom. They did a little research there, and they found that those people that were applying and just were simple, straight out normal applications, they went to the bottom of the barrel and they just laid there and waited and waited and waited. And she either gave them to him after a long length of time or never gave them to him. But if you wrote a check to the reelection campaign, you got yours back pretty quick. That's not ignoring the law because it's unconstitutional. That's breaking the law and being corrupt. You're exactly right, Paul. And to come up with this argument that, oh, well, that's the reason I did it. It's just, I don't know where the logic comes from. I don't know how that possibly applies unless they thought they were going to get one of them hometown California liberal judges.
Well, I think that's exactly what they were hoping for. And furthermore, I mean, it wasn't just cash contribution to her reelection fund. She also took, and Cupertino is in that Cupertino, California, home of the most evil corporation on the planet, Apple, is in her county. Apparently, Apple wanted concealed carry permits for their. Wow, I'm getting my own voice back at me. They wanted concealed carry permits for their security officers, and so they donated iPads to the entire sheriff's department. That was enough to get them. There was another business that wanted some of their employees to have concealed carry permits. They got her a elite box office for San Antonio Sharks games. And so, I mean, it was all pay to play, man. And it was totally, it was so corrupt I could smell it from South Dakota.
Yeah. Unlike the liberal definition, that's actually what quid pro quo is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me see if we've got any comments coming in yet. And Robert's checking in from New Jersey. Thanks for Robert. Let's see here. Our next story. This one off WTOP.com. Months after the U.S. Supreme Court substantially changed the legal standards prohibiting guns in public, D.C.'s Attorney General says handguns should continue to be banned on the Metro Transit system. Attorney General Karl Racine, in a pretrial motion in a federal suit filed by 4 people seeking to carry guns on the public transit system, said Metro, with rail and bus passengers, including thousands of federal workers and children riding to school, is one of the sensitive places where guns can remain prohibited. The lawsuit, which was filed shortly after the Supreme Court's decision expanding gun rights, are referring to the Bruen decision there, says while bans in school stadiums and restaurants are likely constitutional, the gun owners should be allowed to carry concealed weapons on Metro. Racine disagreed, saying every modern mode of interstate transportation prohibits the carrying of loaded firearms on one's person, including commercial aircraft and interstate buses. Let me remind the Attorney General there that buses, airplanes didn't exist in 1790, and there was no law saying you couldn't carry a gun on your horse from state to state. What do you think?
And they were
Mike?
absolutely carried on stagecoach. They were absolutely carried on the the wagon trains. They were absolutely carried. The new standard is historical reference and plain text. To say that it's not in history does not make it historical research. It's what was the intent, what was the plain text of it. To say you can't have it because there's federal employees and children. I'm sorry, are federal employees now a super class of citizen that they deserve more rights than the rest of us? I don't think so. This is just another absolute bit of lunacy. And I wish, and I've heard others talk about this recently, wish that the Supreme Court would send U.S. Marshals down with subpoenas and say, listen, here you go. Judge so and so, you're going to appear before the Supreme Court and explain why you failed to follow your order. And then if they don't have a valid reason, you have to put them away for contempt. It's all there is to it. I'm waiting for the day that the Supreme Court says enough is enough.
Yeah. Robert chimes in, Sue, stop the poor people who need it most. Modern Jim Crow. Yeah, I brought that up earlier this week. And this is something that's fairly common knowledge, at least among the gun rights crowd. Gun restrictions hurt the poor the most. They're the poor are the ones who are most likely to live in neighborhoods where they need to defend themselves because police coverage is poor. They're the ones who are most likely to use public transportation. They can't afford their own vehicles, or they live in an area where it's unpractical to have a vehicle. And so it disproportionately, the poor are the ones who are hurt most by gun control laws.
Yep, absolutely. You know, they talk about the rail line there being a sensitive place. You know, we've seen New York do it, right? Well, everything's a sensitive place is what they've defined it as. You know, again, waiting for the redefinition. You know, we saw Kavanaugh and Thomas define what it was, and they're ignoring that. Here, you know what sensitive places are, folks? A jail is a sensitive place. A mental hospital is a sensitive place. Maybe a courtroom is a sensitive place. Things where you have people that are not allowed to be around firearms.
Yes.
Those are sensitive places where you can't keep them around. To say, oh, the subway, because a lot of people ride it, is the exact opposite of why they should be carrying it.
You're exactly right. If they're going to create a sensitive place, there needs to be real security. They need to have real people with real guns, putting people through real metal detectors and making sure they have no even knives on them when they go through there. If you get repeatedly dinged in the going through the metal detector, they need to have both male and female officers to go and strip search your ass. Pardon my French. You need to have real security if you're going to create a sensitive place. And yeah, the island of Manhattan is way too big. Central Park in Manhattan is way too big to be a sensitive place. You just cannot control an area that big.
I'll tell you what, I would concede, Paul, to allowing them to tell me I have to be unarmed if they provide me security and everybody else security on a 1-for-1 basis. So I want one person protecting me with their firearm, and I have to be their priority. They can't protect themselves first, because otherwise I'm the one that protects myself on a 1-for-1 basis. Unless they're going to come to that level of securing us, step back. We're going to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And how can I be certain the person they have assigned to protect me has me in their best interest?
Exactly right.
It's not like, and I'm going to draw a line to our local courthouse here. Our local courthouse in Minnehaha County, which is the name of the county I live in, does have security. General visitors have to go in through a metal detector. You do get wanded if you set it off. I'd call it moderate security. Now,
yeah, we have in Florida now, thanks to the folks at Florida Carry a few years back. If I go to the municipal building, right, the courthouse is in there. The code enforcement's in there. You got business licenses. You've got zoning. They have the metal detectors. You go through, and if you come in and you say, "I'm going to zoning. I'm getting a permit. I have a firearm," they say, "Okay, well, we need to show us your concealed weapons permit, because in Florida you have to have one to do that. So you show them your permit. But if you're going into the courtroom, the courthouse, you're not allowed to. Again, it's where they keep criminals. It's a sensitive place. You're trying to keep the firearm away from those that are not allowed to have it. Again, that's all right. But I've had them when I've come through there before, especially when the law was new. Well, we need to see your firearm. No, you don't. Now,
Yeah.
you're just going to make it worse. Go get your boss. Go get your boss. But yeah, so we can actually go into the non-courthouse portions of the government buildings with our firearms now in Florida.
Well, what gets me is here in South Dakota, I go through security. However, attorneys don't. The sheriffs themselves don't. The people who work inside the courthouse, such as the clerks and the people who work in the clerk of court's office, they don't.
Yeah.
They have a separate
Right.
entrance that's not secured for them. Just there's the public entrance where there's security. I would imagine in history there's been an attorney or two who slipped a cog. I would imagine there's been somebody who works for the clerk of courts has slipped a cog before. If they're
sure.
exempted from security, why can't I be?
Yeah. No, exactly right. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Robert has another comment. I knew this one was going to come. Speaking of Minnehaha County, that name is a little funny. Of course, have you looked at Mike's last name lately? That name makes me thirsty. Sorry, it just does.
Yummy.
Anyway, next story I want to get to, Mike. This one off New Jersey Globe, and I'm not gonna read a lot of it. I'm gonna kind of my brain isn't working right now. I'm gonna synopsize the story. They did a poll, just a little bit of the story. Nearly all New Jerseyans, 92%, are concerned over mass shootings across the U.S., but that doesn't mean they all support stricter gun laws, according to a Rutgers Eagleton poll released on Thursday. State is divided over protecting the rights of gun owners, with 46% of the state saying that the government should set controls over gun ownership, and 30% think the priority ought to be defending the Second Amendment. And I've said this a million times on the air, this is going to be 1,000,001. I'm really suspect of any poll, period, unless I can see the raw data from the poll. I cannot in this case. And because they can ask questions worded so that any moron would say, yes, I agree with that. And all of a sudden, Paul Lathrop agrees with gun control.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, according to the polls, Hillary Clinton's going to win the election by 20 points over Trump.
Yes.
So you're exactly right when it comes to polls. I have no confidence at all in polls. We don't know the people that were polled. We don't know the questions. We don't know, how they were asked. Exactly right. The polling goes out with, hey, what do we want to decide on? Okay, let's set the poll up to make sure it comes out that way. Polls are ridiculously wrong here, and that's a recent phenomenon because listen, you've got who controls the polls, right? The liberal media, so they're going to make sure it comes out their way, to watch polls, and that's actually a manipulation, right? They're trying to manipulate public opinion, just like they would during an election. If they start saying, Hillary's going to win by 20 points, Hillary's going to win by 20 points. Well, those people that were, sitting on the fence or maybe running a little late to the polling place, they're not going to show up because they don't want to waste their time for something that has already been told to them is going to be meaningless. That's how you manipulate people through the polls.
And it's absolutely right. I'm having problems with my software picking up Facebook comments, but going back to the security discussion we were having, John points out, and it's very true, you must go through a screening to board a plane. It's not the greatest screening in the world, but you got to go through it.
And the plane, listen, they also have, like, similar to the courthouse, they have a known crew member access point, so they come in because they're pre-vetted. It's the same way that you could go to TSA pre-clearance and you could pay, have your background check done, get fingerprints, put them on file, and then you get to walk through the fast lane also. They don't do that at the courthouse. They only do that to the courthouse for those employees. They're not letting the regular public do that. So there's your difference between them and the airlines, is that everybody comes through here except known employees of the courthouse.
Um, Robert commented over on the YouTube side about that poll. Nobody polled me, and there's another problem with polls is the oversampling. They can sample, on average 40% are Republican, 40% are Democrat, and there's 20% in the middle. They could sample 60 Democrats, 10 Republicans, and call it a poll.
Yeah, I've we got GRPC coming up, Gun Rights Policy Conference. We'll have 800 or 1,000 people there, and we've all been going to this for years and years. Paul, this topic always comes up when we're there. I've never talked to one person there that's ever been polled before. Never.
And I'm going to say I've been polled about several things. I've never ever been polled about guns. Maybe my name has gotten big enough that they just say, well, don't ask Lathrop. We know what he's going to say, or take him out of the random,
right.
The randomizer.
That's what I'm referring to, like Second Amendment issues. That's what I'm referring to. Listen, I've been polled before about the Whopper versus the Big Mac, but nothing of substance.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to remember what the last poll I had was I got called about was. It's been a while. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think it had something to do with gay marriage, but
yeah, I've been polled a couple of times, and it's usually like consumer goods is what they're brand names, consumer goods, advertising. That's usually what I get hit with.
Well, we are at we're about 20 after the hour. And I'm going to do this every day this week. I want to kind of end up. I want to talk, Mike, about GRPC. I want to talk about why it's important for people who've been there. You've spoken at many of the GRPC conferences, and I can't remember you ever missing one. But if you would, in your words, why should people get to Dallas rather than just relying on me broadcasting it, which I will? But what's special about being there?
Listen, the broadcast that you're going to see, and if you're in person and you're only in the auditorium, you're going to hear incredible material. You're going to see the people that are involved in the policy making, that are involved in the advocacy, and you're going to hear them, firsthand. It's incredible information. But like a lot of the other, big activities that we go to, you will get to as soon as that person comes off the dais and walks down. You get to go have a conversation with them. You get to sit in the in the lobby. You get to go to the bar, the restaurant with them, and meet all of these people. And we're there to talk to everyone. Paul, we all talk back and forth. We do all of our media. We cross over, but we're talking to each other. When we get there, we get to hear from the people that maybe don't have a radio show or a daily series like you do. And they're normal everyday people that are there to talk about their Second Amendment concerns. And quite frequently, that stuff gets added to, our list of topics. Where you're getting it straight from the people. It's almost as if, we are the representatives of the Second Amendment community.
Yes.
And that's where we get a lot of our information from, is because I'll say this, and I say this about SHOT Show, NRA, and GRPC. 80% of what goes on happens after 4 or 5 o'clock, when everything's closed, when the official event's over, and that's when the social portion takes place, and you get to meet these people and stay in touch with. I've got people I've met at GRPC that I talk to constantly, and these are just regular everyday people that are concerned with the Second Amendment and their rights.
This will be the 10th year of GRPC for me. This is going to be I want to say the 6th year I broadcast it, but everybody I work with on a regular basis in Second Amendment media, I've come into contact with them the first time at GRPC. And a good number of the people, if I have them as a guest on the show, the very first time I come in contact with them is through GRPC. I got to my very first one, which is 10 years ago this week, was in Florida, and I got to meet Alan Gura and talk with him. I got to meet, of course, and I was at that time a tiny little podcaster. I had, if I'm going to be honest with you, maybe I had certainly less than 100, maybe less than 50 listeners on a regular basis. And Alan Gottlieb took time, despite this being amazingly busy, he took time to talk to me and made me feel like an important person. That absolutely hooked me, and I decided right then and there I was never going to miss another one. It's just the experience, man. I do as much as I can to bring the experience to you if you can't make it, but there's nothing like being there, man. So if you can, get to Dallas, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, and then October 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, I think the first time you and I had a real conversation was you were down on your knees tracking down a loose or a Cat5 cable connection, and clearly you were in a hurried mode. So I just stopped and started helping, and that was it. That was 5-6 years ago, and listen, we talk all the time now. We've developed a great working friendship and relationship.
Absolutely. Craig is another one. I ran into Craig at Gun Rights Policy Conference. I want to say it was the second or third one I went to. And I noticed him setting up to broadcast from there. I'm like, man, that's cool. Tell me a little bit about your equipment. And then we got to discussing what we did and found out that it very closely intermeshed.
Yes.
So, all right, man. Well, we are just about down to the bottom of the hour. Before we take off, man, tell everybody about Arms Room Radio. Tell everybody about the Rundown.
Yeah, the Rundown is a daily video series I do with Craig DeLuz. He's with the affiliated with the Firearms Policy Coalition, and we do it every day on 2A Views and Conservative News at 5 p.m. Eastern, Facebook, the YouTube, and OpsLens. You catch us there. And then I've been doing I've been doing Arms Room Radio. We're in our 8th year now. 8 years. With Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Just go to armsroomradio.com. You can see where you can find us, if we're on one of your local stations. Otherwise, you can listen right there live and go back and listen to all the previous stuff. That's been the anchor for me, the thing that started it all. And it's been an incredible experience. And, look forward to continue doing it for years to come.
Very cool. On my end, please come. Tomorrow is Legal Friday with Alex Uli, 5 p.m. Central Time. Come join us then. On Saturday, I think I may be in over my head. I've got Tony Simon. Let me get my calendar up here. I've got Beth Alcazar and this guy. Saturday at noon Central Time. And I've got to keep all three of those on track through a 1-hour broadcast. So that
lots of luck.
Yeah, I'm going to need it. But do come wherever you're watching us now. And Saturday is live for everybody. OpsLens gets a push the next day, except Saturday. Saturday, when we go live, we are live to OpsLens as well. So come join us Saturday, noon Central Time, and wish me luck because I'm going to need it. But no matter what happens, it's going to be a fun show. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you